Hotepu, and welcome to the next installment of The Spiritual Adventures of Little Beetle. Little Beetle is our young, gay African shaman being taught the sky religion by his teacher in ancient Egypt. Let's tune in to the lesson being taught to him tonight by his master. Little Beetle, the last time we spoke beneath these skies, I told you the secret of how to find the true cardinal directions. To do so, you must first find the North Pole star in the north. Visualize a thread or string dropping down from that star to the ground, and build a monument or a marker there on the ground. That becomes the zero starting point of a circle you will draw around you, tracing the horizon 360 degrees. You will then divide this circle into 4 equal-sized right angles, where each angle intersects the circle marks the point of that true cardinal direction, true east, true south, and true west. But tonight, let's unify the directions. Let's combine them and perform the great Smatawi, the unification of the two lands. And we'll start by unifying north to south, south to north. Now, you've heard mention in our temples of a very powerful and magical serpent called the rainbow cobra. Tonight I teach you the true meaning of this serpent. This serpent refers to the arch in the sky that connects true north overhead down to true south. Future generations will call this serpent by many names, including the Meridian. It is simply the rainbow arch connecting true north to true south. Now, we call it magical for good reason, which I'll tell you in a few moments. This serpent rises up from the north, goes towards Polaris, swallowing it, continuing its arch upward, and then descending down to land at the southern true position. Now, the key thing to understand is the way we described this arching line in the sky. Although you can't see it with commoner's eyes, the shaman can see it, and to him it is a serpent made of many colors. What were the words we used for this line, the meridian? Meridian means the middle point of the sky and refers to that zone halfway between rising in the east and setting in the west, or conversely, that point halfway between setting in the west and rising in the east. So, this is the middle point, and future generations will call it the AM-PM line. AM meaning anti-meridian, before the meridian, before the middle point between rising and setting, or PM, post-meridian, or having passed the meridian point. But we call it the rainbow serpent of the sky, and we also call it by the word Djed. Let's turn to the south and see why we call it Djed. The word Djed is a very famous image in Egyptian iconography, the Djed column. The word Djed means stable, enduring, abiding. It also means to speak, to say, to utter, or to pray, as well as having a root meaning mountaintop. The ritual of raising the Djed column refers to following a star's transit towards the meridian in the south. The stars rise towards highest culmination point, shown by this true south meridian line. When a star is rising from the east approaching this meridian, we call that AM, anti-meridian. Once it's past this point and is going from south to west, that's called past meridian or post meridian, on the way down and setting. Now, we learned that this zone, although you can't see it, does exist, and the shaman can detect it with his shamanic Djed, his magical eye. And we learned through deep ritual and meditation that whenever a star crosses this line, crosses this serpent's body, there is a disturbance in the field of that deity inside that star. Each star, recall, is a gate within which stands a god. And when the god crosses this serpent's body, either in the south Djed column or the north meridian Djed column, the god experiences a kind of destabilization, a kind of disturbance, because it's entering a transition zone between rising and setting. It's like when you're moving from one house to the other. While you're moving, you're neither in one house or the other. You're somewhere in between, and there's much chaos during that transition moment. So this zone is like the star god moving from one house to the other. And so we said we had to learn how to stabilize the god when they're making that transition. Now we called it the mountaintop because the mountain means the highest point of energy. When a star god crosses the meridian, it hits its highest energetic place, yet it's also disturbed. So we had to Djed to it, to speak to it, to pray to it, to help stabilize it with our words of power and our prayers. And as we stabilized it, Djedding it, Djed means to stabilize, with our Djed, our words, the star gave us a mountain of power. Great spiritual force was given to us. So we initiate to learn to use this point as a power point in our rituals and our magic. Now the Djed column is a vertical column with 4 horizontal bars crossing it. If you look at this meridian, it too has a straight line with notches going horizontally, imitating in a self-similar fractal way the actual Djed carving. Now, this meridian belongs to what's called the horizon coordinate system. We call the word horizon Akhet, the great fire. There are several ways of measuring the sky, little beetle. You can measure from the standard of the horizon, or from the base of the ecliptic, or using the equator as your base. If we use the horizon, it's called the horizontal coordinate system. If you use the equator, it's called the equatorial coordinate system. And of course, if you use the ecliptic, it's called the ecliptical coordinate system. There are 3 separate ways of measuring the same sky from different points of view. And these notches of numbers you're seeing, going from the ground up, the numbers increase. So from the ground is 0, and then you see a 10, 20, 30, 40, and tens. This refers to what's called as the degree of elevation or altitude above what? The horizon. So for example, we see in the foot of what others will call Ophiuchus, we call Ra. We see there are 2 stars in his toes, and they're crossing the meridian at around 31 degrees of altitude or elevation above my horizon, above the viewer's horizon. If we saw this same constellation down in Komombo or at the delta, our horizon would change as we move our location on Geb the Earth. Therefore, where the star cuts this line will also change because my horizon has changed. My baseline has changed. So this meridian cobra rainbow of the Djed column is horizontal or horizon sensitive. Change your latitude, which means how far north or south you are of the equator. Change the city you are on the earth, and you change these crossing degrees. So, this is the teaching of the meridian. And the meridian, we said, is the point of disturbance, yet great power. So when we pray to the star gods now, as they cross this point, know their power is awesome, their power can be terrible, and their power can be most beneficial. Learn this lesson well. Be aware of the rainbow serpent in the sky. Be well, Dwawend Hotepu.